Welcome to the final section of Section 1 in Duolingo Japanese, counting. Oh, and would you look at this? No tips. Looks like you're on your own on this one. Until now. I guess this series just got a whole lot more valuable, didn't it? Well, you better subscribe immediately to save yourself any future stress or confusion, as myself and Chisa are about to provide you all the tips that you will need, and much more. So let's begin with understanding the explanations of the two counters taught within this section. Wait a minute, what are counters? Counters are a series of small words placed directly after a number. Now these are used to describe what type of object that you're counting. In Japanese, there are many different counter types used. Also, it's important to keep in mind that when using various counters, the words for numbers such as ichi, ni, san, and beyond may change. Yes, it can get a bit complicated. So for now, let's just take it easy and cover the two counters that were taught within this section of Duolingo, tsu and ko. Tamago ga 1個あります。Tamago ga 2個あります。Tamago ga 3個ありません。In this section of Duolingo, the tsu and ko counters are both used to count most things, whatever that means. Honestly, I'm not quite sure the difference between these two. However, from the examples throughout this section, I'd found that tsu was to be used to count desks and tables, and ko was used to count apples and eggs. I would love a little bit of clarification on this right about now.
How I differentiate between tsu counter and a ko counter is ko counter. I would use ko counter for counting anything like small and solid. Something like a ball or even like this one, small and then solid, hard, right? For tsu counter is very versatile. Yeah, I think like it's something more like delicate and softer. It's tsu counter. When we order like food at a restaurant, we would use tsu counter to order. For example, like, spaghetti を一つください。
ラテを一つお願いします。サンドイッチを二つお願いします。
One thing. So like for the tsu counter, I don't think we have more than 9 numbers. Yeah, like in terms of the numbers, like we can't count more than 9. So we can go like 1つ、2つ、3つ、4つ until like 9つ, which is 9. But I wouldn't count more than 10 because I don't know how.
Before you go on to review all the phrases in this section, I highly recommend that you spend some time memorizing how to count 1 to 10 with each of these counters. Now, allow me to show you my favorite method for making this happen.
1個、2個、3個、10個。
Alright, it's phrase time. Let's dig into what type of phrases we had learned in this section and how we can practice them. The first phrase that we will look at will allow you to describe how many things there are. Ringo ga 3個あります. There are 3 apples. The structure of this phrase is thing you are counting, ringo for apples, ga particle to mark the object, number of items, san for 3, the counter type added onto this number, which in this case is ko, san ko. And finally, we have arimasu, meaning to have or there is, for non-living objects. Kapu ga 2個あります. There are 2 cups. To turn this phrase into a question to ask, are there 3 apples, simply add ka to the end of this phrase, as in to say, arimasu ka. And now you have the question, are there 3 apples? The next related phrase within this section was how to generically ask, how many are there? This phrase is quite simple. Ikutsu desu ka? How many are there? Told ya, nice and easy. Ikutsu meaning how many, and desu ka marking this statement as a question. Done deal. Let's move on. Is ikutsu commonly used? And if so, please demonstrate.
Ikutsu is very commonly used. Whenever you ask how many are there, then like you need to use ikutsu. For example, いくつリモコンありますか? いくつリモコンありますか? Meaning, how many remote controllers are there? No particle can be there just right after ikutsu, which is how many, but I think generally it's omitted.
It's now time to expand on this simple phrase to get a little more descriptive, as in to say, how many tables are there? Yes, that would be a little bit more descriptive. Teiburu wa ikutsu desu ka? How many tables are there? In this phrase, first comes the object you are asking about, then the wa particle to mark the object as the main subject in question, ikutsu meaning how many, then our usual sentence ender in question format, desu ka? Teiburu wa ikutsu desu ka? Now keep in mind you can also replace desu ka to arimasu ka, meaning are there or do you have? And now this question asks, how many tables do you have? I think. Let me clarify this one. Does teiburu wa ikutsu arimasu ka mean how many tables do you have?
Hi, yes it does.
Yeah. Alright, I hope you're ready because we are about to take these phrases to a whole new level. This next phrase will not only allow you to state how many items there are, but how many items there are within a specific location. Take a look at this gigantic phrase. Heia ni mitsu no isu ga arimasu. There are 3 chairs in the room. As you can see, the grammar for this one is quite a bit different than English. Let's take a look at the structure here first without particles, then we will come back to those after to clarify. In this phrase, first comes the location of the item, heia meaning room, the number of items, mitsu meaning 3, using the tsu counter, the item itself, isu meaning chair, and finally, arimasu meaning there are. So again, location, number of items, item, arimasu, or imasu depending on if your subject is living or not. Now getting back to those particles, we all know that ni is used to mark a location, no is used to mark an item or subject to belong to something or someone else. In this case, no marks mitsu, the count of 3 to belong to the following item, chairs, as in 3 chairs. And of course, ga is used to mark the main subject of focus. Again, this phrase is pretty next level compared to all the previous examples so far. So practice memorizing the structure and put it to practical use in your life as much as possible. However, before moving on, I have a question. In this example, I see that the no particle is used to mark the property of 3 to the item chairs. Tell me more.
So no particle comes like between like 2 nouns or like more. So like noun, no noun, you actually are making a new noun. Actually, number can be a noun too. So mitsu is like a one noun, and then isu is the second noun. And then we have like the no particle in the middle. Generally, the first noun describes the second noun when you find a no counter between them. So like the mitsu, which is the first noun, is explaining more about the second noun, which is isu. So these like 2 nouns are just a whole one kind of noun as a subject. Does it make sense? Mitsu no isu. What kind of chairs are you talking about? 3 chairs you're talking about. Something like that.
Next up will be the previous phrase yet again in a more questioning format, such as to ask how many chairs are in the room. Let's see how this one transforms based on what we had learned so far. Ready? Heia ni isu ga ikutsu arimasu ka? How many chairs are in the room? This phrase is very similar to when stating how many chairs are in the room. However, the object in counting gets followed with ikutsu, meaning how many. We also change arimasu, meaning there are, to its questioning format, arimasu ka, making this an official question. So real quick, the structure of this phrase is location, object, how many are there? It's now time to get a bit more interactive and demanding with some more useful phrases involving counting. First up, let's take a look at an example that will allow us to state how many objects we will take an action with. And lucky for me, this first example involves one of my favorite daily actions, eating. Ringo wo 2個食べます. I will eat 2 apples. Because who eats just one, right? The structure of this phrase goes like this. Object, wo particle to mark this object to be affected by the verb at the end of this sentence, then the number of this item that you will interact with, followed by the verb describing the action that you will take. Again, as apple was marked with the wo particle, we should immediately know that this apple will definitely be eaten. So again, the structure of this phrase is object, wo, amount, verb. Another example using this phrase could be Hon wo sansatsu yondemasu. I will read 3 books. Satsu is the counter for books. Sounds a lot like satsumaimo, sweet potatoes. That's a big one right there. Let's go for this one here. Oishisou. The next phrase we will cover will be how to ask for a certain number of objects. This phrase ties into the previous phrase taught within the food section of Duolingo. Mizu wo kudasai. Water, please. However, in this version, we are now implementing quantity into it. For example, ringo wo kudasai means apple, please. However, if you wish to insert quantity, such as to say 4 apples, please, you can insert yonko, the number 4, using the ko counter, right after the wo particle. And now the structure is object, wo, number, please. Ringo wo yonko kudasai. 4 apples, please. And with all that said and done, I believe a congratulations is in order, as you have just completed this review of the counting section of Duolingo. You are now equipped with all sorts of helpful phrases that you can use throughout the day for efficient practice. If you are still confused on the difference between the ko and the tsu counter, you better be glad you stuck around this far, as I am about to share with you one more blast of knowledge. Well, actually Chisa will. Can you give 3 examples of how you would use the ko counter to count objects?
Yeah, candies, USB drives, and toys. All of them are pretty small and also solid.
Can you give 3 examples of how to use the tsu counter to count objects?
Tsu counter is used to count something like softer and delicate, like eyes, right? Eyes are softer, I guess. I don't want to touch it. But then like they should be soft and delicate, and ears as well, maybe pimples. So something softer, delicate. With that said, you can use tsu counter to count food, like apples, oranges, you can. But at the same time, you can also use a ko counter to count food, fruits as well. But generally, at restaurant, like when you order like 1 cup of coffee or any food up there, I think you should use tsu counter. I'm not sure why, but keep in mind.
If you enjoyed this lesson or found it helpful in any way, we would greatly appreciate it if you would share this video, like it, or leave a comment or question below, as we would love to hear from you. Also, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to this channel so you won't miss out on any future reviews and lessons that will help you unravel the great mysteries of the Japanese language. Arigatou gozaimasu for watching this lesson, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.